Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dawn Tracy and welcome to the Monday morning devotional video. Today we're going to look at the temptation of Jesus and the purpose behind wilderness experiences. So I'm not going to read any specific verses today, but I'm going to be alluding to Matthew chapter 4. Verses 1 through 11, which is where we see Jesus being tempted in the wilderness by the devil. Wilderness experiences are things that we can really expect as believers. And there are lots of different reasons why we might find ourselves in wilderness experiences. Sometimes it's because of our own sin and disobedience, like the people of Israel. But sometimes, like here in this story with Jesus, it's a season of testing. Now, I don't personally believe that every difficult season that we go through is a testing of God or it's even the hand of God. I do, however, believe that every difficult experience that we have in life can be used by God to birth something good in our lives. We see that evident in the words of Paul in Romans 8:28. It just so happens that in this wilderness experience with Jesus, the Lord did allow this to happen. The Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 4, verses 1, that Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Now notice that God himself did not tempt Jesus. The Bible tells us that God does not tempt us to sin, but God did orchestrate this so that Jesus could be tempted and tested. When I was preparing for this video, I was asking the Lord, why was this even necessary? And I wish I could sit here and say that I have that answer crystal clear and concrete, because I don't. I don't know the full why behind this testing that Jesus went through, but I do feel encouraged because I feel like I'm in good company. If Jesus, who is fully God, was tempted and tested, then of course I will be too. And the way this testing ended is even more encouraging for me, and I'll get there in a moment. Reading this story of Jesus being tempted in the wilderness, it taught me some things about how I am supposed to fight and persevere in testing seasons and in seasons of wilderness. Wilderness periods, they suck. They're really hard. They are really difficult. And this was difficult for Jesus too. The Bible tells us that he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And it says, and he was hungry. And so at his weakest moment at the end of this fast, in a wilderness period, the devil shows up to tempt him. And even at that weakest moment, Jesus was prepared for this fight. What it taught me was being in a wilderness period, even in the most difficult moment, that does not mean that I pray less or I spend less time with God or I read the word less. It's the opposite. I have to be on guard and I have to be ready, because in my weakest moments, the enemy is waiting for his opportunity. And though this testing of Jesus was orchestrated by God, the enemy waited 40 days and 40 nights when Jesus was hungry to test him or to tempt him. Because the enemy don't test us, he tempts us. God will test us. Let me clarify that. And it's important to mention and emphasize that Jesus was hungry there, because the first thing that the devil tempted Jesus with was with food. The enemy gonna tempt you with the exact thing that you feel like you need in your weakest moment. The thing that you're longing for the most, the thing that your flesh wants the most. The enemy gonna dangle that thing in your face because you are hurting, you are broken, you are weak, you are in the wilderness. And he's like, come on and engage in this thing. It'll help, it'll make you feel better. Just like he did with Jesus. Another thing that I noticed about this wilderness period that Jesus went through is that the enemy was almost trying to bring Jesus to the point of questioning who he was in God. He said, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into loaves of bread. That's in verse 3. And then in verse 6, he turns around and says, if you are the Son of God, questioning it again. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself off of this temple, off of this high place. Throw yourself down, and the angels gonna come get you. Command the angels to come and get you, essentially, is what the devil tempts Jesus with. And so it's the, if you are the Son of God. Jesus knew he was the Son of God. This is literally after he got baptized. And a voice from heaven declared that this is my Son in whom I am well pleased. So the deity of Jesus had been announced. Jesus knew who he was. And the devil said, if you are the Son of God. And so it showed me that these doubts that we have about who we are in God and who God has called us to be, that's the enemy. The enemy wants you to doubt who you are in God and doubt who God has called you to be, because if he can get you to do that, not only are you going to do something as foolish as what he is asking Jesus to do, throw yourself off of the side of the temple, turn these stones into bread and eat, break your fast, right? If you're going to do something foolish that can jeopardize the season that you're about to walk into when the wilderness is over, you will make decisions that will jeopardize your purpose and the calling on your life. And now you got to go through a whole new process to fix and correct and clean up what happens when you do the foolish thing. I hope you're following me here, but the devil wants us to question, because then we won't follow through with the things that the Lord is telling us to do, because we don't even think we should. We don't think we're qualified. We don't think we actually are who God said that we are. And so in this season of tempting Jesus, I also learned that those doubts about who I am in God, that's the enemy using these weak moments and these wilderness periods to try to get me to question. So that's all I have for you today as I wrap up part 1 to understanding the wilderness seasons of our lives. Join me here next week as we look at part 2 and just continue to learn about the wilderness season from Jesus being tempted. So in the meantime, in between time, I want you to think about what was said in this video today, really ponder it and see how you can apply it to your life, whether you are in a wilderness period or you are coming out of a wilderness period, or you just anticipating that one will come in the future. Whatever season you might be in, ponder these things and really seek the Lord's guidance and wisdom on how you can apply this information so far. It is so important to learn the tactics of the enemy so that we know how to fight it. So I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you here next week for part 2, same time, same place.